Hey, Holly Kitchens, how you doing today?
Hey, I am great. How are you?
I'm good. Man, we've been busy lately. It's been nice. I just love to work, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
you know. So appreciate you coming on today. I want to talk about branding and
Yes.
marketing and how it
Yes.
can really impact your business in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because how many agents are in your marketplace, right? So there's the importance of branding and how you utilize different strategies to stand out in your marketplace. So I'm super excited to chat with you today on all those things.
Nice. And I've noticed there's a difference too between branding, marketing, and everything that you have to do to kind of set up the branding, because branding is great, but if it doesn't get out to anybody, it's kind of a moot point, right? Like
Absolutely.
if you don't have all of your systems and processes and your infrastructure built up to be able to get that message out there, it really doesn't go far. You know, that's why I kind of studied and learned everything I could about search engine optimization
Mhm.
and figuring out exactly, okay, here's the platform I'm using. What do I need to do to be able to stand out above everybody else first to get my message across to people, right?
Yeah, 100%. So like you could be the best real estate agent. You could know all the different, lending options for your clients. You can help them from point A to point B. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that marketing out there and people don't know you exist, you're not going to be able to help anybody, right? So that's where, branding comes in. And, when it comes to branding, it's, showcasing you as a professional, showcasing your company, so on and so forth. And I think, a lot of people make the mistake when either they're just now starting out or they're just now getting serious about their branding and they go towards something that's like kind of what they aspire to be or something that they just like because it looks like this instead of being true to themselves of who they are, what they stand for. Because I think once you really truly understand that and understand who you are as a person, individual, especially when it comes to personal branding, as a lot of us will have to rely on for real estate advertising, I think that's going to be the key. So it's understanding, who you are, what you stand for. A brand is more than just a color scheme and a logo. A brand is in the way you talk. It's in the way you carry yourself. It's the clothes that you wear. It's how you carry yourself. And I think once you really get that dialed in and know who you are, and of course, if you're just starting out on the branding journey, there are times where it's kind of like that awkward phase in middle school where you're like, I'm not sure what kind of a crowd I belong in. Am I like
Right.
the gothic kid or am I like, the hipster kid or, whatever it
Yeah.
is, whatever place you're looking to fit in. And, but once you really dial in that brand, it's so important to stay consistent with it. And then more importantly, be that brand, right? Like
Right.
we all know those people that you look at them online and then you meet them in person. They're not anything at all what they show up
Right.
as online. So I think once you dial in that as a brand, as a professional, and then you use the effective marketing tools to take that brand and amplify it and get your messages out, that's going to be a key to successful way to market yourself in the area that you're in and really be known as the go-to person. Because the reality is, we're working with people who have the biggest investments of their life.
Right.
It's needless to say, in this day and age, someone's going to Google your name. So how are you showing up online when they perform that Google search? And then
Right.
how are we creating that intentional online presence so that we showcase ourselves and our talents?
Right. And I think it's so awesome that you pointed out, that it's everything. It's like your personal character. Because I always like to look at things from the consumer's point of view. Like if they just look me up online, because that's how we get a lot of business, right?
Hmm.
They watch these videos, they listen to me talk, they look at, every Facebook post, every Instagram post, every, social media, anything. And then if I show up at the listing appointment and I'm anything different than this guy, they're not going to like me very much, right?
No.
They're, I've taught them to know, like, and trust me through my marketing, through my branding, and it really does. Consistency matters. I agree with you on that. Um, would you agree that keeping things kind of simple when it comes down to branding is important too?
Oh, 100%, especially in this day and age of, of course, brands shouldn't be necessarily on trend. However, our, aesthetics and things like that should be relatable to who we are and kind of evergreen, right? If you think about it that way, I feel as far as branding goes, people don't want to think really hard about who you are or what you do, right? So, making sure that you associate keywords of, obviously real estate is going to be a great one. So it's going to be like Holly Kitchens Realtor, right? Like
Right.
my name says what I do. But, some people like to get crafty and they're like, well, I like to say that I'm a homing,
Hmm.
whatever. And it's like, that's great. But also, if someone's like, oh, I'm looking for a real estate agent. So keep it super simple, going back to the basics when it comes to branding. And then, two, that way, you don't have 500 colors going in your color scheme. You have, three, right? So
Right.
keeping it super simple down from the name to the tagline to the brand look itself.
Yeah. And it all comes back to the SEO stuff. I mean, if you keep all of your information
Mhm.
simple, correct, the same across every platform, the human mind kind of acts and reacts the same way. They want simplicity. They want to know you right away. And like
Mhm.
you said, they're dealing with the biggest investment of their lifetime potentially, right? So
Yeah.
they probably don't want like a cute, fuzzy, bubbly person. They want someone taking this career as seriously as humanly possible because, you know, you're seriously playing with other people's money essentially. And,
Mhm.
you know, like I know for fact if I weren't a realtor and I was buying a house, I would want to go with somebody that met a professional standard of mine, right?
Absolutely. Like, you wanna go for somebody who has a proven track record, not
Yeah,
just because they have a pretty sign, right? Or they
right,
have a pretty face or whatever it is that,
right,
people might think that that's what the consumer is looking for, but typically the consumer is gonna looking for a proven track record with results. So that leads into, like, the part another part of brand that people need to take in consideration is, how are you sharing those results? How are you letting that that social feedback of people
mhm,
saying how great you are, how are you showcasing that? And it's great. A lot of people, will just take the typical closing day picture, which, don't get me
mhm,
wrong, those are great because you're at the closing
right,
table, everyone's happy. But typically, the ones that are most powerful are going to be like the hearing the stories from themselves. And what do if you got into if you just came back from a bad home inspection, like maybe go
mm,
live on Facebook and say, hey, this is what happened, these are things to look for, this is why it's important to have a home inspection. Or if you're
yeah,
on the flip side and you have a seller that gets a inspection report that's, it seems very overwhelming, but if you actually start looking line by line, maybe having like a home inspector go on like a live like this and demonstrating that. So, like, if you obviously, when it comes to building your brand, you do want to tie in expertise and knowledge to your brand. So finding ways to go in and do that as well is just another way to amplify yourself as a person and a true professional versus just the next, pretty face on a sign or whatever you want to
right.
say.
Well, and another thing that's cool about doing these lives and stuff with people, right, is you can repurpose this information. Like
Hmm.
all of these videos, like I had no problem launching a podcast last month because I had hours of information, from
Yeah.
doing these lives with people. And you just upload the MP3 and boom, all of a sudden you have a podcast out there. And, you cut it up and make little reels and
Hmm.
do all kinds of stuff to where people are constantly seeing your activity and you're constantly broadening your audience that way.
Oh, 100%. It's so easy. Podcasting, as like, for those who know me, they know that podcasting is my favorite way to deliver content because
Right.
there's so many ways that you can deconstruct it, especially if you do it video. There's, long form YouTube, there's shorts, there's transcription, there's blogs, there's
Mhm.
so many ways. But, I'll just use podcasting as a great way to leverage, to showcase your brand and really market your expertise. Is I have a lot of friends in real estate that are doing podcasts that are like specifically toward their marketplace.
Right.
So, for instance, if they're a real estate agent here in Oklahoma City, they are, showcasing the events that are happening this weekend. And every week, my friend Ronnie, he will do a post on social media that's like, here's the things to look forward to do this weekend. I
Mhm.
know every Friday, if I have nothing to do that weekend, I could easily hop on Ronnie's My OKC Metro Live
Yeah.
and find a detailed list of everything, what to do and where to go and
Right.
what's happening in the area. So, but he does that so consistently. He's done that for like so long to where I know that I can go there, right? So,
Right.
what are you guys doing on a daily, or not? It could be daily, weekly, whatever it is, basis to build that trust and have that consistency. And if a podcast is it, podcast is a great way to also put your name out there, and you get to control that topic as well and speak on being the expert of that podcast topic.
Yeah. And it's really neat too, because once you like, I go through rss.com for my Path of Travel podcast, right? And I couldn't believe it. Within like a week and a half, 2 weeks, I was in like 6 different countries. And it's just that simple. It's, there's a small amount of money. I think it was 120 something bucks for the whole year to be able to have that engine, be the vehicle, but that's nothing, it's cheap. And
it is so cheap. 100%. And I will say this, podcasting gets you into rooms that you can't buy yourself into. I mean, I found myself in, green rooms being escorted by Third Eye Blind's management. I've seen myself being, let in to after parties where people are brainstorming about their own podcasts as artists and things like that. There's no VIP ticket that I could have bought to get myself into that room. It does allow you to get access to authority while being that authority figure in the room. And I think that's a great one. Me personally, like Libsyn is what I was using for the past, since 2017 when I started my podcasting journey, and it was $15 a month. I personally actually just moved my podcast from Libsyn to Spotify for podcasters. They recently, I say recently, well, I could say, I guess probably the last 6 months, they bought Anchor, which I know a lot of people are familiar with. Yeah. And if you're really dedicated and committed to becoming a podcaster and really real about it, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You do need to have a good microphone and things like that, because those things are important to a good podcast episode. However, as far as like getting your word out there, I mean, Spotify for podcasters is free, and it gets you on iHeartRadio, it gets you on Apple iTunes, it gets you on Spotify and all these other places. So there's just another way for you to amplify and share that content across platforms.
And podcasts are so popular. Like I constantly, when I first wrote Path of Travel, the first book, people constantly were like, when are you coming out with the audiobook?
Yeah.
I was like, I'd rather you take the time and read it. But then I realized that people are literally sitting in their cars listening to podcasts and consuming information that way. And just like with real estate, right? You got to go where the eyeballs are. With podcasting, it's almost like you got to go with where their ears are and what are they listening to.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because that's exactly what they're interested in. If we're wanting to expand our brand, that's the only way to go. So I am in the middle of working on trying to wrap my mind around doing an audiobook, but at the same time,
I'll be completely honest, I will listen to a whole entire audiobook before I will sit there and read it page by page, just because it's easy to adapt that to your lifestyle, like you said, in the car, at the gym, traveling. We all know when you're driving, you can't sit there and watch a YouTube video, or you can't sit there and keep your phone unlocked because it's going to, shut off because it's an activity or whatever. So audio is, a lot of people might think video is taking over the podcasting experience, which, it's definitely helped change the game of getting more eyeballs on your podcast. However, at the end of the day, podcasting in its true form is an audio experience.
Yeah. And it's enjoyable. I never thought it would be. And then all of a sudden, the busier I get, I'm like, I want to consume some information that it's the new radio. I mean,
100%. There's even talks about like AM, FM radio, like how long is it till they're non-existent? And I think next year there's some vehicle companies that are even putting AM, FM radios in their vehicles. So one point it's kind of like Blockbuster and Netflix, right? It's like at one point these radio stations, they're going to have to make that switch to, now they're going to be streaming on Spotify. Yeah. Now they're going to be streaming on iHeartRadio. And I know they already are right now, but at one point, is it going to be like, that's going to be how you consume the information? There's no longer that radio airways, if you will. Yeah, I think that's like super important to also understand too, like while someone's developing their brand and doing these things, it's understanding the big picture and not thinking too small, because if not, then you're going to end up, you know, left in the dust like everyone else that didn't take action and adapt.
Yeah, no, I agree with that totally. You gotta almost look 5 years ahead
Hmm.
in almost everything that you do, because I mean, let's face it, if you think small, you're going to get small results, right? If you
Correct.
act small, you're going to get what? Small results. If you think huge, you're going to have huge success. And it's going to be tough to get there. It's going to be hard work. You're going to have to, get beat down a few times and learn how to,
Hmm.
what each step in the process takes to be able to get to the next step, right? But in 5 years, you'll be excited with your results, and you'll be excited with how far you've come in whatever you're doing. And just staying relevant these days, I mean, man, the
Hard. It's a lot.
climate change is quick, and technology is just advancing faster than I've ever seen it, before. And so it can be fun, but it can be daunting, right? Like staying
Hmm.
cutting edge and one step ahead.
You know, and another thing too, like it's great to be on point, on trend when it comes to what's going on and like you said, technology and so on and so forth. But I think also too understanding and not getting lost of who you are and what you like stand for. I'll
Right.
give it a classic example of for me, like AI, right? Like
Yeah.
AI is kind of like the hot topic this year. Like everyone is an AI expert,
Right.
everyone knows all the cool things. And I personally use AI. I think it's cool. I think it's
Yeah.
great, especially if you're like me and you write the way you talk, and as a writer you're supposed to write differently, right? So it does
Right.
help me. However, I think a lot of people might make the mistake in getting lost into AI instead of using the original AI, which is actual intelligence, right?
Right.
So not having a machine not having a machine telling us who we are and what we do and what we say, utilizing that machine to help us show up better, and maybe wording some things better, or giving some ideas whenever we're drawing blanks, but not allowing AI to really dictate who we are. Because I see a lot of people, you read things and you're like, oh, that's definitely not that person. Like that's
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
I do.
So I think it's understanding that too, and like being cautious and aware, and then remembering why you started doing what you're doing. A lot of real estate agents are super passionate about the area that they're in. Don't
Yeah.
allow like shiny objects to distract why you're so passionate, because you'll soon experience that burnout like a lot of people do, or that you'll just get, you'll be blended in with just like everybody else saying the same thing that's being generated by an output.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it is super helpful, right? Technology,
Oh, absolutely.
technology is a tool. That's
Yeah.
all it is. AI is a tool. And when you're busy and you got to do a listing description really quick, it
Yeah.
does come in handy. It really does. And it's just so much faster than sitting down and actually taking the time to write it out. But here's the rub. It's so different. Like when I sit down and I actually write out a listing description, people are like, that is amazing, right?
Hmm.
When Janelle does it with AI, because that's how we do a lot of them. A lot of times, if I'm too busy to sit down
Yeah.
and actually write something, my wife, you know, will put it into the Chat GPT or whatever she has, and then she'll go through and edit it because it's never perfect, right? Uh, it literally is artificial, but it doesn't land the same as when I sit down and actually
It
write out.
doesn't. Like, I always tell people too, if you're using AI for content creation, again, it's fantastic. I am not an AI hater. However,
Yeah,
I
I love
always encourage people
it.
to go in there and add their own touch to it, so it
Right,
actually sounds like it's, so it is coming from you in that sense.
right,
And another thing too to be aware of, and I know it's getting better and better each time with their doing updates, but at the end of the day, AI pulls from, Google pulls from things like that. What else is also on Google? False information.
right.
So a classic example is, for my music podcast, I was like, researching like artist birthdays, so
Yeah,
just doing happy birthday, whoever, right? Whatever band member. Well, I like typed in like list out 25 rock star birthdays in this upcoming month.
Right.
Of course, bam, 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 gave me 25. I started like copying and pasting because, of course, I never want to say happy birthday when it's not actually their birthday.
Yeah.
Almost half of the information was incorrect.
Mm,
So I'm like, I'm glad I double checked because I would have looked like a silly girl posting like happy birthday and
right.
then their birth, in October and their birthday's not until April.
Yeah.
So, it's having that awareness too when you guys are going through and you leveraging those tools, fact checking it. Because the last thing we want to do is, especially in real estate, because there's a lot of times that you can get in trouble for spreading misinformation. And not that we're
Right.
doing it on purpose, but at the end of the day, we are professionals and people look for on us. So I know that that's kind of a rabbit hole away from like branding, but I feel like it's important too because a lot of people would leverage, AI when it comes to building a brand and creating content. And again,
Right.
at the end of the day, we're the face of our own brand. So how are we distributing ourselves online and what information are we putting out?
Yeah, and it's not that much of a rabbit hole. I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah.
we're talking about vehicles, right?
hmm
SEO, making sure that all of your information is correct, right? If everybody
Yeah.
did that, AI would be better, right?
Correct. Yeah, we would have to worry about
Straight up.
fact checking things. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we're talking about the vehicle of using a platform to get your podcasts out there.
Yeah.
I personally use a different one than you, but
Yeah.
you
There's
know,
there's so
they're
many
all,
ways to get there, so many ways to execute something. It's just
they're all
I always
vehicles,
tell people
and
exactly because
and
people ask what's the best hosting platform? You're like, the best one's the one you're gonna use.
yeah,
So find what works for you and execute and stay consistent.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love AI. I think it's a really
hmm
fun thing. It's not new. It's been around for
Yeah,
quite a
quite
while.
some time.
Um,
It's
it
just so accessible now to
it's new
everyone.
to
I
the
think
general
that's why.
public, yeah,
hmm
but it's been around for a minute. I was part of the people that got to do the beta testing for Google's AI, the Bard,
Yep.
and it's fun. I enjoy it. Um, I really like the fact that when you get information out there and like branding, right? Like you get your image out there, you get everything that is unapologetically you in front of the populace, the general population. They
hmm
start reacting to everything that you do in a different way. And I think it's really important to get your marketing and your branding on point.
100%. I always tell people if you're just now starting to be super intentional about building out your brand, think of 3 to 5 keywords you want to associate with your brand and make sure that that's what you put on everything, anywhere you speak on a platform, anytime you do a post, ties back to those keywords because, it's like a muscle going to the gym. You don't go once and then walk out with a six pack of abs. You
Right.
keep going there over and over again. So as you're building your brand, you want to be known as the go-to, let's just say country club expert or the go-to local lake community expert. You need to be known to be putting out content like that. So like for me, like I've been podcasting since like 2017
Right.
and it's something I'm super passionate about. So of course I talk about it a lot when it comes to content creation. And now like I'll get it to a point where people are like, oh, that's the podcasting queen. And it's like so weird to hear people say like the podcasting expert, the podcast. And I'm like, I just really enjoy doing it. I guess I talk
Right.
about it a lot. But once you start doing that so many times and knowing how to do something so well, that's when people start looking at you differently. So if you want to be known as the go-to listing expert in your community, make sure your content's saying that you are putting in the work to show that you are that person
Yeah.
because you might, be mailing out a bunch of postcards and making those dials, making those contacts, which is
Right.
great. However, if you're not putting that, you sold this home, 3 doors down from your own house or whatever it is, and like, hey, I live in the community or however you want to build yourself up as an expert, how are people going to know? So, start with 3 to 5 keywords. Maybe it's real estate. Maybe it could be like there's a Galardia. It's a country club here. So Galardia. It could be North OKC, OKC Metro. Think of those keywords and then make sure you are, creating content out there to establish that brand as the go-to agent of whatever you're looking to, to put yourself as that brand expert in there for.
I think that's great. That is, really good information for people to take to heart. Thank you for coming on with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Stick around for a minute.
Perfect.